Have you ever met someone who speaks with total certainty, but after just 2 minutes you realize they don't actually know what they're talking about? Maybe it's a friend who suddenly becomes an expert in nutrition after watching one TikTok, or that coworker who loves to give strong opinions in meetings, yet, when pressed, they can't back them up. Or maybe it's you. Have you ever been so sure about something, only to later discover you were completely wrong? That's not just arrogance. It's not even always intentional. It's human psychology, and it has a name: the Dunning-Kruger Effect. And here's the fascinating part. The ancient Stoics already understood this trap over 2,000 years ago. They didn't call it the Dunning-Kruger Effect, but they warned again and again about the danger of believing you already know enough. Because once you think you know everything, you stop learning. And the moment you stop learning, you stop growing. Today we're going to bridge modern science and ancient wisdom. You'll see how the Dunning-Kruger effect works, how the Stoics warned us about it, and, most importantly, how you can avoid falling into the trap of false confidence and instead climb toward real wisdom. What is the Dunning-Kruger effect? In 1999, two psychologists, David Dunning and Justin Kruger, made a discovery that shocked the world of psychology. They tested people on logic, grammar, even their ability to tell jokes. And here's the twist: the people who did the worst were often the most confident in their answers. Think about that. The less skills someone had, the more certain they were. Why? Because you need knowledge to recognize knowledge. And you need knowledge to recognize mistakes. If you don't know the rules of chess, how could you possibly see when you're making a bad move? If you don't understand nutrition, you might think your all-pizza diet is perfectly fine. If you don't understand finance, you might feel confident putting all your savings into the latest crypto coin that a stranger online recommended. The less you know, the more likely you are to overestimate yourself. That is the Dunning-Kruger effect in action. And guess what? The Stoics already warned us about this exact thing. Epictetus said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." So let me ask you, have you ever stopped listening to advice because you thought you already had it figured out? And how much wisdom might you have missed because you believed you knew enough? The curve of confidence. To really understand this effect, imagine it as a curve. At the very beginning, when you first learn something, your confidence shoots up like a rocket. This is the famous Mount Stupid. Here you know just enough to feel smart, but not nearly enough to be smart. Have you ever read one article about health and suddenly felt ready to debate doctors? Or watched one documentary about history and instantly believed you could argue with professors? That's Mount Stupid. Then comes the crash. Reality sets in. You realize how much you don't know. Confidence drops into the valley of despair. This is the humbling stage, and it stings. Maybe you failed an exam you thought would be easy. Maybe you started a side business thinking it would be simple and discovered it's 10 times harder than you expected. Or maybe you thought you were a natural at a sport until you finally faced someone truly skilled. That's when overconfidence shatters. But here's the hopeful part. If you keep going, if you stay humble enough to learn, fail, and improve, your confidence slowly rises again. This time, it's not based on illusion, it's based on real, tested experience. That slow, steady climb is where true mastery begins. Seneca, one of the great Stoics, captured this perfectly. The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. We expect mastery too quickly. We expect to be experts before we've put in the years. But Stoicism reminds us real growth takes patience, persistence, and humility. So let me ask you, where in your life are you standing on Mount Stupid? And where are you climbing step by step toward wisdom? Stoicism and false confidence. Now here's why this matters. The Stoics saw false confidence as one of the greatest dangers to the human mind. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, wrote in his Meditations, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I shall gladly change, for I seek the truth, by which no one was ever harmed." Think about that. The most powerful man in the world, an emperor commanding armies, didn't see correction as weakness. He saw it as strength. Now compare that to our world today. How often do we defend our wrong opinions just to protect our pride? How often do we argue online, not because we're right, but because we refuse to admit we're wrong? That's the Dunning-Kruger effect. Ignorance digs its heels in. Wisdom says, "Correct me, teach me, help me grow." So ask yourself honestly, when someone points out your mistake, do you feel attacked or do you feel grateful? Real-life examples. You see this everywhere. The coworker who reads one article and suddenly becomes the office expert. The friend who watches 2 YouTube videos and now explains politics like they've studied it for decades. The influencer who has more confidence than actual knowledge, but because they speak with certainty, thousands of people believe them. And of course, ourselves. Be honest. Have you ever given advice you weren't truly qualified to give? We've all done it. That's Mount Stupid again. Plato warned about this long ago. Wise men speak because they have something to say. Fools because they have to say something. So here's the challenge. How much of what we say is truly necessary? And how much is just our ego trying to look smart? So, how do we escape the Dunning-Kruger trap? The Stoics give us 4 powerful tools. Humility. Every day, remind yourself, I could be wrong. Just imagine how different debates or even relationships would be if both sides admitted that simple truth. Seek feedback. The Stoics trained by debating and challenging each other. When was the last time you asked someone you trust, "What am I missing? Where could I improve?" Keep learning. Don't stop at Mount Stupid. push through the valley of despair. Every book, every lesson, every failure is a step up the slope of enlightenment. Value silence. Silence is underrated. Don't rush to speak. Don't rush to look smart. When you're silent, you can observe. When you observe, you can understand. And when you understand, you grow. Which of these four do you need most right now? Conclusion. The Dunning-Kruger effect teaches us something humbling. Confidence isn't always proof of knowledge. Sometimes it's proof of ignorance. But the Stoics already gave us the antidote. Humility, patience, openness, the courage to admit when we don't know. Socrates, who inspired the Stoics, said, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." That's the escape from Mount Stupid. That's the path to true wisdom. That's the way to a golden mind. So let me leave you with this. Where in your life are you most confident, but maybe, just maybe, you shouldn't be? And what could change if, instead of pretending to know, you opened yourself to learning again? If this message gave you perspective, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to Golden Mind. Because wisdom isn't about pretending to know everything. It's about the courage to keep learning every single day. If you got this far, consider liking and subscribing to help us keep posting regular content. Thank you.